Chantal.
And I'm Nikki, and we're the faces behind Agile Caribbean Link.
So today we wanted to have a special conversation with a special lady in our lives, Miss Belinda Williams. She has over 20 years of experience in communicating. And, as human beings, we assume that because we are humans, we naturally know how to communicate. But Belinda has mastered the art of communicating with her stakeholders. Right. And she has impacted companies in a way that they have grown, and they have grown, and they have grown. So she's going to give us some insights into how we can, actively communicate and engage with our stakeholders to get the results we want from them. So let's get straight into it.
So, first question, what is communication, Belinda?
Boy, I won't give you the textbook approach, but communication is basically, for me, transmitting information that is valuable, that is timely, that is relevant, and that is going to stick. And you need to ensure that you're also directing it to an audience.
Right.
So those are some very, very critical elements that you need to have when you're thinking about communication. The textbook approach is going to tell you all things about what is communication, verbal, non-verbal, the cues that you should use, how it is that you should mirror when you're having conversations, how it is that you should have key messages, the what, the when, the where, the how, the why, all of those things that go into making a communication valid. But at the end, it's all about what it is, the key message. What's that key message?
Or key action.
And the key action. How do you want the person to feel? How do you want the person to respond? And in doing that, you have to also ensure that you understand just who it is that you're communicating to.
Right.
And when you're communicating, because you have such splintered audiences, at times you may just have to break down that message. So you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10
Right.
different levels and layers of communication going out. But one thing that sticks and remains true is that key message that you're conveying to all the stakeholders across the board.
And how do you suggest, as managing teams, working with teams, working on a certain project, communicating up, how do you suggest that we keep our messages simple and clear?
Communicating up is always going to be a challenge, but how you can actually break through that is ensuring at the onset that you have somebody who is linked in to the executive level. So you have to have a voice at the table. If you don't have a voice at the table, it simply means that you're not considered to be important in the scheme of things.
You won't be heard.
And you won't be heard any at all. Or if you're even heard, it will be minuscule or it's a secondary thought.
Right.
No, communication is not an afterthought. It is a foremost part of any plan, of any strategy, of any execution. It has to be there at the forefront. And the good thing is that many persons are practicing these days the integrated marketing communication.
Right.
So it's not just about marketing, it's not just about sales, it's not just about communication, it's about that integration, it's a 360. So that way you can get to have everything and all the players being at the table and coming out with a solution. Now, to get the buy-in of your sponsors, who are oftentimes executive, you have to ensure that you're very, very brief because they don't have any time. So you can't come with no 20-page PowerPoint or anything like that. It has to be because you have to think about who you're communicating with.
Right.
And their time is also very, very expensive. So if you don't get that message across in 4 or less than 4 or 5 minutes, and it's the same thing that is true for us in terms of how we take in information.
That's true.
If you're scrolling and you're scrolling too much, your fingers start hurting, you're going to put down the phone. You've missed the point. You've missed the boat. So it don't make any sense. So you have to hit it on the head. To talk to your sponsors, you have to have ingrained in your conversation with the sponsor a knowledge beforehand as to what really excites and get the sponsor going. Having that knowledge about what really excites the sponsor is primarily all about oftentimes the bottom line or about the actual delighting of the persons, the clients, the customers. So if you can have those two elements and you can demonstrate that in a very successful way, just get to what success looks like in the end for them, then you can possibly get them excited. And once you get them excited and you get them to buy in, and let me tell you, when you go talk their language. Do not be qualitative if they're quantitative people. And And we know that marketing and communication, especially communication, is a qualitative discipline. You have to find a way to make your material quantitative so you can speak the language of your sponsors. Because if you're not speaking the language of your sponsors, I'm sorry guys, you're not going to get their time of day. And you have
so
to do so
important.
like you know the whole thing, like an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like you see them for the first time and you just say, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I love the point that you made about speaking their language, because I think too often what we try to do is go and present based on what drives our passion, and then they just look past it because you're not speaking their language, so they're not hearing what you're saying. So I think that's perfect.
You're absolutely correct, Nikki. And you have to divorce yourself, and it's something that we would have learned. Don't take anything personal. It's not your idea.
Right.
You have to come out of yourself and look beyond yourself. Think big picture. Think 360 as well. Because if you think 360 and think big picture, there's no way that you're not going to get even a flicker or a glimmer of excitement once it is that you go. And please don't go with the same old kind of presentation. Go with something that is going to get people excited. Wow, them man. So at the end of the day, you're gonna say, all right, in bringing this or conveying this message across to them, what's gonna be the takeaway when I walk out of that? What are they gonna remember this conversation?
Or even what you said, what do you want them to feel?
Yeah, how are they gonna feel? You know, so that's basically it. And I wouldn't say to you that sometimes you're gonna get it in the get go on the first go. That would be great to get it on the first go. So sometimes they give you feedback and you're leaving that room and you're not convinced that you've actually sold them on the idea. Just ask for another time where you can come back, take that feedback that you have gotten, go back to the table, and guys, this time around, the second chance to make a right impression, nail it.
Love it. All awesome points, Bill.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit more of how you manage the conversation with top management when you've heard from your customers and they say to you, this is what I want, this is what I need. You bring it to the table, top management not paying no mind. How do you manage that conversation now to effect change for your customers? Because your customers are who you're serving, and if they're asking you for A, B, C, and D, but top management wants 1, 2, 3, 4, how do you still, kind of either tie them together or show and articulate to top management why it is that we need to listen to our customers and effect the change that they're asking for?
At the end of the day, for top management, you must understand that it's about the bottom line. And in driving the strategic imperatives, you have to make sure that even when you get the response or the feedback from your clients, from the customers, you have to peg it back to what strategic imperative is this going to change, and how is it going to change it? Now that how is also going to help you to deep dive into just what the sentiments are coming from the clients. Because with understanding the client sentiment, one of the things that you can do now is this is where you inject the empirical data. And you know that once you go with the empirical data, especially if it is devastating, they will sit up and they will listen. Now, I would like to take it a step further to say to you that even when you would have gotten the feedback from the clients, get something that is tangible. So probably a testimony, probably something that shows or demonstrates how this has really impacted the clients and what ramifications this will have if it is not changed. Now, this whole word about change is something that we throw around very often and very loosely. But it means different things, Nikki. And let's be honest, even if we were to think about ourselves and how it is that we change habits, and this is where I can just inject a little bit of a spiritual thing here now.
Let's go.
Because my pastor once told me that habit is the hardest thing to change, and I was looking at him like, and then knowing as a communicator that when you're changing habit, it's very, very difficult. He's actually spelled the word habit, HABIT. If you take off the H, you still have a bit. If you take off the A, you're still a bit.
Yeah.
And if you take off the B,
It's
you're
still
still a bit. So you see
Yes.
the work that is
Yeah.
laid out for you.
Right.
So in changing habits,
Right.
you realize what's going to happen. And I mean, you would have also introduced so many other solutions
Right.
that you realize that some persons will just jump on it with alacrity,
true.
and that depends on where they sit on the fence of
Right,
change.
right.
You know, and you know, have some persons who are still in the middle. So you have to think about just who are the different players and where they sit,
Right.
and how it is that you're going to convince them. So even when you're having that conversation with management, you need to also be able to show them or to say to them that we understand that X percentage is on this side
Right.
and Y is in the middle, and if we
Right.
can convert X over this side, this is how it's going to impact the
Right.
bottom line. So guys,
Yeah.
try to find a way
Yeah.
to make sure that whatever it is you're putting forward as a solution is going to fundamentally move the needle in terms of the strategic imperatives, because especially now during COVID, the priorities have to shift so often.
Yes.
And as we get to understand what is happening, the consumer insights are going to be very, very critical in
Right.
terms of how it is that we're going to be responding right now. Because right now is a stay moment where people don't want to erode anything. They,
True.
and so many things are changing already that it's very difficult for them to be going to get onto anything new. But guess what happened? This is a time also where it demands for you
Right.
to put some new things in
That's true.
place
That's true.
that's going to change how they do things, because we're already constricted and confined to the whole aspect of it's not the norm.
Right.
So and especially if it's going to be something that's going to be a delightful experience, think about the user
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the day, I think that half our battle would have been won.
But
You
Belle,
know.
I hope I'm not worsening this conversation by taking a little bit more aggressive standpoint where your customer feedback, let's say it's hard to tie it back to the bottom line, just because it's more about my experience as a customer. So, you know, I don't necessarily want to take an extra trip on the road. I don't want to go out of my way to, you know, take action, but I need to do this thing. I want to get this thing and I want to get this service from you, you know, but it won't necessarily impact the bottom line.
Or even if
But,
it does not
but
immediately.
if it
Exactly.
doesn't immediately, guys, the next question to you is, how pervasive is this?
It's an issue.
You
Okay,
understand?
I get you.
And if that is so, what's the future or the forward implications if we were to go ahead and move on this? Because and then that is where it's going to also dictate the priority
That's true.
in terms of whether or not your sponsors are going to jump
That's true.
at the opportunity
That's
to
true.
to say, let's move this one on the table. It's a game of chess.
Right.
Let's move this one on the
Right.
table and put this one forward,
Yeah.
because this is definitely going to give us the winning that we need.
get you.
And at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
about winning. I'm
Actually,
sorry.
I'm leaving to tell you, Belinda.
Yes. At the end of the day, it's all about winning. And don't be disappointed to bring forward your solution and even get the feedback that they're not ready for it yet, because you need to understand their matter of timing and priority. And this is where the element of the truth continuum comes into play. And the truth continuum is a basic principle that is utilized in communication.
Okay.
Tell me, show me, involve me.
Okay.
So you have to not only utilize that in terms of how it is that you're going to be putting forward your ideas,
Right.
but it's going to also use that when you're also having that conversation with your sponsors.
Sounds excellent.